Don't be greedy, avocado grower. Your branches will break, I promise. You got a lot of fruit set and you're so excited, you're so happy. Don't try to keep it all. It's sometimes a lot smarter to get rid of some. Before we talk about branches breaking, let's talk about less serious problems with too much fruit set on certain branches. This is a Hass tree. Hass rarely breaks branches because of too much fruit set, but it does get sunburn on the fruit. Let me get up into the canopy and show you. I thinned the fruit on this limb, but I probably still didn't thin quite enough because it's still drooping and there's still some sunburn on some fruit. But I'm lucky the branches didn't break and get sunburned themselves. On this Gwen tree, on the other hand, the branch with a lot of fruit up the top did get sunburned. I'll show you. That's the sunburn despite my having removed quite a bit of fruit. I'm lucky I only got sunburn though. If you leave too much fruit on trees while they're small, they can break themselves apart, get sunburned so badly that they actually die. Or limbs can split apart and they'll kill themselves that way. This is little Gwen, set way too much fruit this year, and so I had to thin a lot. You can see some of the fruit that I thinned down there because I didn't want it to kill itself. Gwen is a precocious variety that you need to be careful with. Gem is another one. But even mature trees of some varieties will break limbs because it's usually because their fruit is really big. This is a reed tree, and I was looking at it just yesterday and I saw that there's a little bit of a gap coming in its canopy right there, and I said, that's not how it used to be. What's going on? So I went and looked inside. And I saw, oh, that's the weight of fruit. Pulling down a pretty big limb, but pulling it down so horizontal that it's dangerous. So, one option is to prop the limb. Some growers like to use 2x4s, maybe single or in an X, to put under the limb and support it, keep it from breaking while trying to keep all the fruit on the limb. I've tried that. I don't really like it, especially with reed, because when the storms come and it gets really windy, often those props actually get dislodged and you'll still break a limb. I've broken a couple limbs on this tree before. A few years ago, I broke a limb, big limb right over here, and lost, I think, 30, 40-ish pieces of fruit, even though it was propped. So rather than propping, I prefer to do a couple of other things. One thing is preventative. So if you see a limb growing too horizontally, too long, you need to pinch it ideally or prune it. Cut it off, hopefully to a more vertical lateral, so that you can get that limb to grow up and not so much out, and to shorten it so the leverage isn't so high. That's the best preventative measure. Secondly, if you find yourself late in the game with this position I'm in where you've got too much fruit and you need to thin some, then which fruit do you thin? Where do you thin it from? First thing is go out to the edge of that, or the terminal end of that limb, and try to thin some fruit from there first, because that's the fruit that weighs most heavily on the branch. So I'm going to look out there first, and I'll show you a few pieces of fruit that I'm going to thin. So out at the end here, I'm going to take this one off. This one's really scarred up. I'm going to take that one off. Here are some that are hanging so close to the ground that by the time all this fruit is mature, it's going to be on the ground, staying wet, getting discolored, and possibly rotting anyway. So I'm going to take these ones off that are really close to the ground. And then finally I'm going to go for anything that's noticeably small. This is a small one. See, compared to that. Small ones tend to drop more often than big ones anyway. And so I'm going to take off small ones like that. But for better or worse, even after going for the small ones, going for the ones on the end, going for the really scarred ones, I've still got a lot of fruit that I need to take off. So I'm just going to have to remove a bunch of fruit until the limb looks like it's not overly weighted. And remember, this is a reed tree, and these things are going to double in size still. So you've got to take off more than you think you need to take off at this point. It's November now. So I'm going to go ahead and strip a bunch more until I think I've taken enough weight off of the limb. In fact, I'll go a little farther than that, just to not be greedy and be sure about it. And because I'd rather have, say, half this fruit than none of it after the whole branch breaks. Is this enough? I took off 30. We'll see.